All right, everybody. Good to see everybody. Welcome back to part two, class two of glowing color and the luminous landscape. If you were, here last week and painted, you're kind of like, what is the luminous landscape? So far, we're just painting browns and earthy colors, and today's going to even be worse. We're painting darks. But again, just like I said at the beginning of class, it is so important, and I think this is some of the hardest part of painting with a split primary palette, is that you get these really high chroma colors, and how do we control them? And that is oftentimes mixing across the color wheel. Again, this is something I didn't even learn in college. It's something that all of a sudden I just, realized that, oh, when I mix greens with reds, I have hundreds, thousands more greens that are possible. Or vice versa. When I mix reds with a little bit of green, I've got so many more options, and how they neutralize and control each other. Sometimes we'll end up making a purple or an orange or a secondary color that is so vibrant green, and it just doesn't look natural. So learning to control those colors is so important. A lot of us just instinctually just want to use black and white or gray to modulate those colors and neutralize them down. And that's fine, but it's a very different color. What's happening when you mix black or white or gray with a color is inevitably you're cooling that color down. I want you guys to think of white and black from now on, from this point forward, going, as you paint, think of black and white as a color, not just a modulation of lightness or darkness. And the weird thing is, even though that white and black are on opposite sides of the value spectrum, is that both of those typically cool down colors. Okay. So what happens a lot of times is when we want to paint vibrant sunsets and we don't want to use, pure cadmium red or something like that, 'cause it's just too strong, we mix in our white and it becomes a dull pink. It's not a lighter red, even though that's actually what we should call pink, because we should call it light red. But it does. You guys have all noticed, I see a number of you nodding as I'm saying this. It's just like, well, I need that vibrancy. I need that strength of color or that warmth. But as I add white, it just becomes a cool, dull pink, which can be great. But we want to know when to use things, when to use certain colors or values, and we want to know how do we warm those back up. So all colors on our palette have an innate value. Okay, this is really important. If you guys take and make your colors wheel, or when you're done with your color wheel, take a photo of it with your phone or whatever and switch it to a black and white, and you will see that the red is lighter than the blue and the yellow is lighter than either of those. That's very important because you can modulate value with the color, right? So a lot of times, instead of adding white to my red to keep up the vibrancy, I can mix yellow. It'll go a little bit orange, but I want to keep that in mind, that if I'm losing the warmth that I wanted, instead of mixing white first, I might actually add a little bit of yellow to it. Does that make sense, guys? See you guys nodding. I've got you all muted right now. So it's very important to think of black and white, both of those, or gray, as colors themselves or as temperature modulators. They're going to cool your colors. Most all blacks are actually really, really, really dark blues, which can work in our advantage when we know that, meaning that you can actually use blacks to make greens. Some of my favorite greens are made when I mix blacks with it. My good buddy Don Bishop, love his work. Check it out. I think I've shared some of it. Uses black a lot to make his greens. He and I go out painting together. He paints here in the Pacific Northwest with me. And again, I was saying that a lot of our greens here are much redder. They lean towards the olive colors. So actually using a black and yellow makes these gorgeous greens. If you're ever curious, do I have a true black? Add yellow to it. If it turns green, you don't. And the funny thing is, I don't know if I've ever found a black that I could add to yellow that just made a darker yellow. So just be aware of that as we're moving forward. We are going to go ahead and step up. I'm going to pin myself so that, oh. All right, so I should be the main thing you guys see here. If you go to the speaker view up in the right-hand corner. And we are going to go ahead and step up to the, oh, you can see behind me over here, that painting that I was talking about being inspired by the one of the paintings that you guys shared, being inspired by doing contrasting colors. I've still yet to come in and color in the sky and stuff, but great. We're going to do, I'm going to jump up to the easel, and I'm going to be talking about mixing dark colors. I'm going to be showing the the split primary palette, but I'm also going to show you guys a couple shortcuts and show you the other guest colors that I have from time to time. So I hope it's not confusing. For this week, for this homework for this week, I would like you to try doing this black and white, or very low chroma, very low color painting of the waves and the moon with your primary palette. If you want to do it twice, then I say let's experiment with making darks in some of these other ways that I'm going to share with you. I was hesitant to share these other ways that I mix dark or blacks with you because I thought it might be confusing. But do you guys think you can handle if I show you doing the split primary palette and then also some shortcuts? All right, great.
Yes.
Cool. Switching cameras. There we go. You can see that on that little piece of scratch canvas paper there. I put some initials, and I'm going to do some color mixing underneath those to create some darks. And again, I'm walking kind of away from the microphone, so let me know if I need to talk louder when I get further away.
By the way, your mic is working great, as opposed to it's not cutting out. So whatever this week is different from last week, it's not cutting out at all.
Yeah, I think I just had to restart my computer after doing all the changes that I had made. That does seem to be working. So I just wrote a bunch of abbreviated letters here, like TER is going to be, so if anybody's taking notes at home, can you guys even read that? Or you can move it a little closer. Sorry about my handwriting, but TER is just the transparent earth red plus ultramarine blue. And then I've got here burnt umber BU plus ultramarine blue. I've talked about that when I want a transparent dark versus when I want an opaque dark. CB is going to stand for what's called chromatic black. And I'm actually going to do an experiment there because underneath that is PG, which actually stands for phthalo, the pterodactyl, P, silent P, plus quinacridone red, QR. So in my understanding, chromatic black is actually phthalo green and quinacridone red mixed. When I want to use a black, but I don't want it to go too blue, this is the black that I use, is the chromatic black, which I've got squeezed out here. Underneath that is the one that I'm probably, either of these is probably what you're going to end up using this week to make your first painting. It's ultramarine blue, cadmium red, and yellow light. Sounds like a weird way to make a dark. Underneath that, I've got ultramarine blue plus quinacridone plus Indian yellow. So these are all transparents here. and it's going to be a little bit more difficult to make a real dark here, but let's just experiment and see what happens. And again, our goal is to make something in line with this. What's really nice is this is basically, I mean, it's a photo, but it's very abstract. So using a high chroma primary or split primary palette to do something like this just seems like craziness, because, you know, normally if I was going to do this, I'd pull out my Payne's gray to make it fast, or I would pull out my some kind of a black and just mix white. But there is little bits of color in here, little bits of, you know, kind of yellow ochre. And the photo that I sent to our Padlet group actually brings out some of the greens that are in the water. So I may lean into that. So I want it to be nearly like a black and white, but with little hints of color is my goal. So
Michael, was your CAD red in that second to last, was that CAD red medium or CAD red light? Yeah.
I have a CAD red light. But
Okay.
that's just what I have on my again, when I'm doing my split primary palette, I want my colors to be as far apart as possible. So my quinacridone red really leans towards purple, and my CAD red light really leans towards orange. So if I was using a CAD red medium, which would be fine, I totally could, but it would move, you know, into this in-between space, right?
Right.
It just gives me a little bit more versatility, because I can actually make this into a CAD red medium by just adding a little bit of
my
quinacridone.
Right. Thank you.
Yep. All right, so first one is my transparent earth red and ultramarine blue. This has been my black that I've used for years. Again, when I want to shortcut or be faster, or when I'm doing the wiping away method, I really like the colors that this makes. So I got my transparent earth red. I'm going to add a little bit of ultramarine blue to that, and just watch. Let me go ahead and turn on some lights, some extra lighting here, possibly, just so hopefully we'll see the colors a little bit better. Let me know if this makes it too glary or harder to see, but I'm hoping that having a little bit of extra light will. All right, so I'm transparent earth red, ultramarine blue. Just makes, in my opinion, just a gorgeous transparent dark. I think I could add a little more ultramarine blue. I can see that it's going pretty reddish. How I test it, because it's so dark, it's hard to see, because I'm just going to add some white to that. So I can see that it's still kind of leaning brownish, which could be a good thing depending on what I want. But to make that more neutral, I would just simply add more ultramarine blue. But I want to kind of keep moving forward. So I'm not going to try to make perfect neutral grays. But just so you know, if you were really looking to make this a beautiful, beautiful neutral, you know, as gray as you can make it, like if it were made from black and white, you could, by simply just modifying. If it's leaning a little bit towards the red, you just add a little more of the blue. Nice color though, like that. Let me wash the brush off. All right, move this guy aside. Now we're moving down, so that's the transparent earth red. Now I'm going down to burnt umber. Mixing with your palette knife is usually easier. It's much easier to clean a palette knife, like wiping it all the way clean than it is a brush. So I'd have a dirty palette knife here. And just by simply wiping that, I've got a pristine palette knife again. So mixing with your palette knife is generally a good idea. I don't paint with my palette knife very often, just because it's not a skill I've really worked on. But I do mix with my palette knives a lot.
Are we going to cover palette knives in the brushwork?
A little bit, yeah, and I will try to, because one of my very favorite paintings that I ever did was with a palette knife, but it's like one of those kind of like happy accidents almost. Whew, so dark, so beautiful. So what's the difference here? And I should have done an experiment. Let me do that really quick. We're going to go one step back to that pile of the burnt umber, the transparent earth red with the ultramarine blue. I'm not going to add white to it this time. I'm just going to take it and move it across and let it just get thinner as I'm losing the paint. So you can see, I probably should add more blue to that. Let's try that real quick. So it's quite reddish still, isn't it? That. All I'm going to do now is I'm going to come back through and use my paper towel to wipe that down a little bit to pick up. So you can see the transparency of it. Which is really quite nice. So that with white and with transparent, and what a difference, right? Just how much cooler, even though I added more blue to this version, the white makes it. So just being aware of what white does to the color. Wow, that is almost like a perfect gray. And this one would have far better coverage, meaning it would obliterate or cover any detail underneath compared to the previous one because it's all opaque color. The burnt umber is very opaque. The ultramarine is semi-transparent. If you saw this, would you not think that I had used black and white to make that? Now we're going to go to the chromatic black, which again, in my understanding, is a combination of quinacridone red and phthalo green, two opposites, both transparent. So oftentimes the chromatic black is considered a transparent black. So sometimes that's going to be really useful when you're painting. You don't want the lamp black or Mars black, which can be very thick and high coverage.
Michael, is there such a thing as a tube of chromatic black?
Yes, right here.
And that's what it's called, chromatic black.
Yeah, Gamblin
Okay.
makes the tube. I don't know if they have it in acrylics or not.
It doesn't matter. I was just curious. If
Yep.
there was one.
Yeah. And I
Does
don't
it
know.
have the pigment codes on it? I'm a bit curious.
Yeah, let's check that out. Good call. Okay, are you writing it down? It's PG 36, so that would be phthalo green. Let me go ahead and pick up my phthalo green right beside it here. And that one is a PG7, is phthalo green. So chromatic black is a PG36 and PV19. So let me pick up my tube of quinacridone red, which is a PV19. So it's just a different version of phthalo green than at least I have in this, but this is the student quality phthalo green. So maybe a true.
When I did my chart using that chromatic black, I feel like it maybe was more matte, very, very matte finished, like it dried really differently.
Interesting. I do find that most of my darks do dry more matte. I also find that burnt umber dries very matte. So quite a lot
When you
cooler.
varnish it, though, then it brings it back out, right?
Generally so, yeah. All right, so that is the chromatic black. Let's try an experiment. And I'm gonna mix just a vibrant blue, or not even gonna mix it, I'm just gonna have a vibrant, let's make a vibrant green. Because my understanding, and I don't paint with chromatic black hardly ever, but my understanding of it is that it's one of the few colors that just darkens but keeps the color. So I'm just going to add a little bit of the chromatic black to that and see if it just makes a darker green.
From here, it looks like it does.
Yeah, so chromatic black, if you just want to darken a color that you've mixed versus shifting it towards a cool, that may be a good option for you. Again, that's not a color I've experimented with. I do have a friend of mine who's really experimenting a lot with that, where he's pre-mixing his colors and using chromatic black as his darkening color. Bill Davidson is his name. I think there's some videos online. I have not investigated that very much, but it seems like an interesting concept.
Try mixing that same green with the burnt umber and ultramarine blue. See what that does to the green.
Okay.
Also, you had said that if you mix yellow with the black and it doesn't turn green, then that's more of a true black.
Man, so many experiments we can do. Let's try that too. All right, so there's that. Just mixing it down. All right, so just gonna go ahead and
It just
So
wipes
this-
out the color.
yeah, this is an opaque black, whereas this is a transparent black.
Which black are you using there?
The last one I made, the burnt umber and ultramarine blue.
What's the name of that tube black again?
Chromatic black, like chroma, CHROMATIC. I mean, that's beautiful though. I could, see lots of use for that. Wow, it really looks dark on the screen. Let's add a little more yellow, even just to help us see it. But I can see the red coming through, that burnt umber, the browns. Isn't that interesting? Let's try chromatic black and grab a new brush, chromatic black and yellow. Yeah, it's so, I always feel like guilty that I don't understand all the colors, but there's just so many. Like when I look in my drawers, I just have so many colors. It would take color charts for years to figure them all out.
Well, it turned green.
Did it turn greenish, you think?
It looks that maybe a yellow ochre kind of a thing.
In the monitor, to me, it looks green.
Yeah, let's set it aside. Let's bring it over here because that's gray underneath too. So yeah, it is greenish.
Pretty though.
Sure is. Yep, definitely greenish. Gets really green when it just a touch of it in there. So yeah, even chromatic black. I mean, it is made with phthalo green, which is a ridiculously strong color. So yeah, as far as I can tell, all blacks go a little greenish when you mix yellow. Good experiment. Thank you guys. Let's clean these off. So now we're going to do, then we'll just do this one really quickly. The phthalo green and the quinacridone red. So if you don't have chromatic black at home, which probably none of you do, then in theory, we should be able to make something closely equivalent using phthalo green and quinacridone red. Let's see. Phthalo green. Quinacridone red. It's getting darker, but it's still very red, so I need more of the phthalo green. Let's add a little bit of white and see where we're at with that. Oh, very blue, gorgeous stuff. Oh my gosh. Is that showing up? Let's add a little more blue to that. It's not a gray, but wow, what a gorgeous color. And isn't that weird? What color would you guys call that?
Manganese.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but it's
Turquoise.
Pretty. Turquoise.
but it's
That'd be-
blue. Right? We took a green and a red, and we made a red, bluish color.
That would be a beautiful ocean color.
Oh my God, it's gorgeous. Isn't that weird? Green and red. So what do we got? If it's that greenish, that probably means we need a little more red to it. Let's see what happens with that one as we go down. There we go. Much more neutral.
You added more red to it?
Yeah.
And
Because
okay,
it's so greenish, bluish here. By
yeah.
adding more red, it went towards a purpley gray.
Oh, wow.
Wow, so interesting.
Isn't that weird? Same two colors, so different. So yeah, that's what I mean. It's just like you could get lost in this forever. So if I had phthalo green on my palette, you could see how much it would shift things. But if this excites you, maybe phthalo green gets added to your palette, you know, or at least as a guest color for wrong color. Maybe as a guest color for a while. So there's times, and phthalo green, to tell you the truth, is a color I've never been able to mix anything close to phthalo green. Let's just put phthalo green here. It
The
is
phthalo colors confuse me because there's actually 4 of them. It's phthalo green red shade and phthalo green yellow shade, I think. And the blue has 2 different ones as well. And they confuse the heck out of me.
yeah, I mean, that's, I've said it before, I'll say it again. I'm a simple man. And so like anything I can do to like make painting more approachable, not less approachable, I'll lean in towards that. But I do love experimenting and trying things, but I just don't want to be experimenting with everything all the time. I mean, what a
What are the colors on the left-hand side, your guest colors?
I mean, yeah, I did these just to show you different ways of making darks, but that's transparent earth red, burnt umber, chromatic black,
Oh, okay. Got it.
and this one is the phthalo green, which is just
you.
gorgeous. Like if you
Is that
really,
PG7, Michael?
let's have a check. Yep, it is PG7. Like add a little yellow to phthalo green. Like if I were gonna go to the Mediterranean for a little while and really wanted to paint the transparency and just gorgeous aqua colors, I might well grab a tube of ultramarine green. I mean phthalo green. Because it is just such a strange and strong color.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Really is. So, you know, it's a color that maybe if I was a little braver, I would add to my palette. But very rarely do I, unfortunately living in the Pacific Northwest, I just don't get to paint these aquamarine colors very often. Let me show you something though, is if I want a beautiful, vibrant sky, it sounds so weird, but sometimes a little touch of phthalo green into my blues sorry, it's not showing up on the screen, makes these gorgeous, like summer's day, just beautiful.
What did you mix it with?
White.
Oh,
That's just phthalo green and white?
And then I throw a touch of a ultramarine blue into that and watch what happens.
Wow.
You can almost see the transition of a summer sky in there. You know, watch, I'll take a little bit of quinacridone red, bring it down to my horizon. Cleaning my brush so I have a nice. One of my favorite transitions is the phthalo, cool pink, purpley phthalo. So that's just it, right? I mean, I've told you my colors that I use a lot, but there's times when other colors are really useful and really interesting.
That's my desert sky.
There you go, right? You
Yeah.
add the ultramarine blue at the top to even purple it down a little more.
Yeah.
So it's the top of the dome of the sky.
Yeah.
Generally, it feels a little more reddish.
Exactly, Michael. Oh my God. I have a big tube of phthalo green. Don't know why I bought it.
So yeah, that's just it. Like, even though I say I use a limited palette, I'm in love with all of these colors. But if I was putting them all out all the time, I would never know how I did anything. So by picking a couple colors, learning those colors, then when you introduce other colors, you can understand what the heck is going on. All right, so this was going to be our quinacridone red and our phthalo green, which is the same thing I just did here. But I just want to make a band of it over here. And again, I can go redder or greener, more purpley, more by just adding one or more of the other colors. So when I mix my own, it is definitely a little different from out of the tube. but I kind of like my version of it better. Wow, it really shows up as blue on there, so maybe I should add a little quinacridone red. Let's. Anyways, you can see there's so many ways to make just gorgeous dark colors. The other thing about this color combination is it's very transparent. Both the phthalo green and the quinacridone are transparent colors. So let's just see if I can grab a little bit. Lost it. Make another little pile of that same color again. And I'm going to do like I did above with this and just make a transparent version of it. Oops. Didn't clean the paint thinner out of my brush enough, so.
When we do our homework, that ocean night sky, can we
Yep.
pick any one of these combinations to do it and play with?
Yeah, 100%. I would say maybe for your second one, I would like you to try doing it. Wow, that looks so blue. So let's add a little more of the quinacridone red. I want to see if I can neutralize that.
So you added ultramarine blue to that to
No,
make
sorry, quinacridone red.
quinacridone red to make it transparent more.
Well, it was already transparent because quinacridone red and phthalo green.
Phthalo are transparent. Okay.
Anyways, gorgeous colors. I would definitely have to spend more time to get a true grayish color out of it, but this is quite gray. You can see it's leaning a little purple, a little blue.
And that one has white in it, right? The lower one?
It does, yeah. And on the top version, I'm just experimenting with the transparency of it. But obviously it's still leaning very bluish. All right, ultramarine blue. So this is the one. Remember, for years for a year I told you I used only 3 colors: ultramarine blue, cadmium red light, and yellow, lemon yellow lemon, or cadmium yellow light. So that's going to be this one. So I take my cad red medium or cad red light in this instance, and I add ultramarine blue to it, and it's just going to make the worst purple. Very plummy, very gross, but very dark. So it's just a very, very, very dark purple. Let's add a little bit of white just to test where we're at with that. Yep, purple. So I'm going to add a tiny bit of yellow, again, mixing from across the color wheel. I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow into that just to neutralize that purple. Let's add a little white to that and see where we're at. You can see how much more neutral. That's almost like a pretty true gray, isn't it?
Amazing, that little bit of yellow.
Yeah, it just takes the purple down. So clean my brush. But yeah, this is the black or the dark that I used for years. I just didn't allow myself to have black, and I didn't. I was just using ultramarine blue, cadmium red, and either light yellow or lemon yellow, depending on the brand. I mean, does that not look like almost a pure, true black?
And that's a more opaque color, correct?
Yes, these are because of the cadmium red and the yellow's semi-opaque. I'm not using a cadmium yellow today. I'm using a Hansa yellow, but.
And that's transparent.
It's semi-transparent.
Okay.
And that white went a long ways.
But when we do our homework, for the first one, you're kind of telling us to use the split primary, not necessarily the chromatic black.
Yeah, I would prefer you figure this out with the split primary, which again is this version or the one I'm about to do as well. And the reason is just so you understand it and know that you can make these dark, dark, dark colors. I mean, in fact, that's probably one of my favorite blacks on the whole thing. And again, I can just warm it or cool it very quickly by a little bit more red, a little bit more blue, a little bit more yellow in theory. So now I'm doing quinacridone red, ultramarine blue. So the only difference here is, oh no, it's going to be, so I'm using all transparent colors. I'm using ultramarine blue, quinacridone red, and I'm going to use the Indian yellow. Still makes an exceptionally dark color. Let's pull a little bit aside, mix some white and see where we're at. That's a pretty nice neutral gray already. Right, put it up next to this one that we thought was pretty good before. It's a little purpler. Let's add a touch more yellow. Need to clean that brush. All of these colors have strong pigment loads, so a little bit could really sway it very quickly. Just don't want this white in this dark yet, because I'm going to do that on the palette or on the paper. So let's grab that guy. Super dark. Add some white. So this would be considered a more transparent black that I can make with my split primary palette. And a more opaque version of it. So you can decide, do I want transparent or black? Or opaque. So there's a lot of ways to make black or darks, because I don't even think of black generally as a color. Like very few things are just black, right? It's more interesting to look within the shadows, to look within the darks and see those colors that are in there. There's generally something bouncing around in there. Even like a black sweatshirt, you'll notice that it has, you know, the ridges and everything else, and within the shadows, it may be more bluish on, you know, within the crevices. So anyways, fun little experiment. Someday I'll do all these prettier and keep them. But for now, I just have these little things that I can do very quickly. So yeah, interesting. This color kind of is strange. The phthalo green and the quinacridone, how bluish it is still. So probably still needs more of the quinacridone red to neutralize it.
So when we do our first painting assignment here, should we, let's say like we liked the one combination at the bottom, would we just stick with that and vary it, or would we play with several different combinations of blacks or darks?
Well, I'm kind of thinking of like the mixing from the inside out. So there's areas where I might want it to go a little greener. There's areas I might want it to go a little more, you know, reddish around the sun or moon. So I'm gonna unfortunately leave that kind of up to you, how you want to do it. And the truth is, if you guys want to do any of these, like you prefer that, like just mixing 2 colors versus 3, feel free. But for this demo, what I'm going to do is, do it from a chromatic black. I'm going to ignore all my guest colors for the painting. I just wanted you to understand that you can do it multiple ways, even with the chromatic or the split primary. That makes sense? Did I get too confusing and show you guys too much stuff too fast?
No, that's great.
Okay.
For me,
Good.
not that I'm the most brilliant, but
That was very interesting. Thank you.
And it's just nice to pull out your tubes and try different experiments and try different things.
The problem is trying to remember which experiment gave you what.
write
Well,
it.
they're all modifiable. And let's just try another experiment real quick. Let's take all of these colors and put them together. Oops, that's not strong. That color's too strong, so I don't want too much of it. All right, that's all 6 of my split primary palette. So already I can see that it's making a very warm brownish color. I want to get this to a neutral. I can even in this bad light see that I'm probably going to want more blue. So I'm going to take a little bit of both blues. Getting closer. I'm going to even add a little more blue. Let's add a little white and see if it's coming out warmer, purple or bluer. It's pretty nice. Still a little bit brownish, but that could work in some circumstances. So let's even add more blue. So again, that cadmium red that I have on my palette is so strong. Let's see if I added enough blue to get it back towards a neutral.
So Michael, is this mother color?
I'm sorry?
Is this you say it is a mother color?
Yeah, I mean, for this palette, it could be for this painting because it's, you know, basically black and white.
Mhm.
So there's areas where this warmer gray would really work, you know, around the sky. There's areas where this cooler gray would work. And then I could even, you know, start thinking, what about the greenish colors that are in the waves? So I'll do that here in just a second, but this feels much more neutral, does it not? Compared to the one
Yes, yes, it's more gray.
or just gray. Let's take a little bit of it and make it go a little bit more greenish. Still just a very dark color. Let's add a little bit of white to that. So you can see again, just kind of mixing from the inside out. I'm just adjusting that color for different areas in this painting. Does that look a little more greenish to you?
Yes,
Yeah.
It's not a strong green or anything. It's definitely not a phthalo green. What about, let's take it a little bit more bluish. There's definitely some areas where that might be useful in this. I just grab a little bit. I'm just going to grab a little more blue. In this instance, I'm just grabbing both because I'm not being very thoughtful, but I'm just trying experiments. Perfect.
Definitely bluer.
right?
Yes.
Isn't that nice? I mean, and they're all beautiful colors. Like if I saw these in a tube of paint, I'd probably want to buy each one of those. They're beautiful, and it's going to be perfectly harmonized because I have grabbed literally every color on my split primary palette.
Would you say that those are of similar values, those four?
Yeah, I think they're very similar. Let's see if we can get it to go yellowish. That's going to be a hard one. It's too much.
Wow.
Very nice.
I love these. I mean, I just love those colors. I love grays, and it's amazing how much we can do with those. I can, you know, take any one of them and darken it. Just by adding more of my mother color. So did that make sense, you guys? How
Yeah.
I would go about making these, possibly making these grays?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna try my first experiment by just doing a transparent. Do you guys mind if I actually take a little 5-minute break again?
No.
Very thirsty, and I forgot my soda water downstairs during the last break. So I'm gonna pause it real quick. And that way we'll, when we have the videos recorded, they'll go straight to this if you want to skip to it. And class will go a second or two long because I want to do a couple quick paintings.